Missions is partnership. In the summer of 1973, a couple from Berrien Springs, Jasmine and Ann Peter Jacob, took their 2 children to India and Sri Lanka. What they witnessed changed their lives forever. Traveling through the cities, towns, and villages, they were appalled by the poverty, misery, sickness, and starvation. Many children are born on the street, eke out an existence on the street, and finally die on the street, never knowing the comfort of a home. Home is a spot on the sidewalk, marked off by a rope or a chalk line, or even a stone to let others know that that space is taken. Filled with these vivid memories, the Jacobs family returned home to Berrien Springs and gathered some friends who were sympathetic to the needs of the children. In October 1973, this group got together and formed an organization that would make a difference. They chose the acronym REACH as its name, Render Effective Aid to Children. From this small beginning in 1973, REACH has expanded into 21 countries with 5 branch offices. Each year, in REACH-sponsored schools, orphanages, and hostels, nearly 20,000 children receive an education, live in safety and security, eat 3 meals a day, and learn the values of faith, charity, and service. In 1990, Dr. Glenn and Sharon Russell led the first short-term mission team from PMC to children's care homes in Romania. Each year since then, PMC youth mission teams from the church have gone to various countries to voluntarily serve. In 2000, the first PMC youth missions team went to Honduras and began annual Christmas break mission trips to the Hogar de Niños. These mission experiences are all about partnerships. Andrew's students partnering with church members here at PMC, PMC partnering with Reach International in Honduras, and all of us partnering with Jesus and the Holy Spirit to make a difference in the lives of children. This last Christmas break, a team of 15 volunteers once again went to Honduras. The friendship team spent many hours worshiping, eating, playing, and interacting with the kids at the Hogar de Niños. Additionally, we conducted a friendship camp for about 100 children that included children from the community. There were so many examples of God's leading. An example of God's answer to prayer was that ITS here at Andrews donated 2 laptop computers for the Hogar de Niños. Andrews students carried those computers to Honduras, but little did we know that those laptops would be used by us for the first week of classes, since some of us couldn't get back to Andrews. We prayed for God's blessings, and He answered before we even knew the need. This morning, we want to share a bit of how God worked in wonderful ways.
Hello everyone, my name is Joanna and I'm just going to share a little experience that I had with a child who touched my heart. So our very last morning, when we were heading out to the airport, I was a little bit sad because I was leaving and I knew I was going to miss them, like running towards the gate and riding their bikes, shouting always our names like Pastor Russell, Joanna, Sion, and so on. And they will always come down to the gate and talk to us and stuff like that. And then I also was going to miss their charming smiles and how they always wanted me to ride their bikes without brakes. And also, mostly, their warm hugs. So there's a special little kid, his name is Ever, and he's about 6 years old, he's about this height, and he just melts my heart. He has these beautiful brown eyes and huge eyelashes. Unfortunately, some of us, we got COVID when we were there, and we had to quarantine for about 4 days. And on Sabbath, we were able to go to church. And I sat at the very back of the church, and Ever was kind of like at the middle, and he was just turning around every single minute, seeing if I was looking at him. And I was like trying to make like funny faces and saying hi and stuff like that. And at the end of the service, I was trying to look for him. Where was he at? And I couldn't find him. When I turned around, I see this little kid running towards me with his little arms open. And I knew I couldn't hug him, but it was just an immediate response that I just kneeled down and I hugged him and he wrapped his little arms around me. And we just stayed like that for a little while. And it feels so peaceful, and it's something that I really cannot explain. I feel so recharged, that I feel so peaceful. I don't know if it was because all of I was going through before the mission trip of the COVID situation. I just know that I know he needed it as much as I did too. And this reminds me of Matthew 25, when Jesus said to his disciples, when you see me hungry, you give me some food. And when you see me thirsty, you give me water. And sometimes we think this as physical food, but the reality is that we need to give love to those people. These kids are so much in need for someone to love them, and they also have so much love to give you. And they don't care if you don't speak Spanish or not, if you play soccer or not. I'm a terrible soccer player. They just want to build a relationship with you. They want to be close to you. So lately in this chapter, in verse 40, Jesus says, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." And this last phrase, "you did for me," just touched my heart, because then I could explain why I feel that way with that hug, because I was probably hugging God through ever.
Hello. Hello. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the joy of giving. I love giving to others, and I've been giving to others since I was little. So when Pastor Russell told us that we were going to go give food to the community, I got really excited. Before I came on the mission trip, I was able to have like a full suitcase of donations, and thank you to PMC and other donators who donated. We were able to get 80 bags full of food. Like we had like rice, beans, flour, corn, anything. And the food would last like 1 month. And there was also like fresh produce that we handed out too. And so we had so many donations that we had to split the donations, handing them out in 2 days. And as you can see, these are some of the homes that we handed them out to. The community around the Hogar de Niños was still struggling from the 2 hurricanes that wiped through like a couple years ago. And so a lot of them had like homes that were very unsafe and like weren't very built properly. But I remember handing them out, and this one little girl came running to me with arms open wide and just gave me this huge hug. I didn't even know her. Like I knew her like a little bit because I saw her at the camp, but I didn't really know her, and that just like touched my heart. I was like, oh, it's so sweet. But and then she would help me. Like she would help me like hand out the produce items, and she would like hand them to people. And so we would take the bags full of goodies and go to the different houses and tell them that we're from the Hogar de Niños and that we're giving them a mini Christmas present. And then we would ask if they had any prayer requests or praises, and then we'd pray with them. Sometimes I would pray, even though I don't speak Spanish, and they would still enjoy it, and I felt that was kind of cool. And so I remember this one boy, he got a pair of shoes, and like he was like jumping up and down and so happy, and he would like go over to his friends and say, look at my shoes, and he'd just be running around. It was just really enjoying to see that when we give to others, it also fills our hearts and makes us able to get closer to God.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, and I actually had the honor of serving at the Hogar de Niños last summer. So I spent 2 months under the hot, humid Honduras sun. And then this last December, I was also able to make it out with the friendship team for a quick but loving visit. So now that you've heard a little bit about what the friendship team did and a little bit about the Hogar, I want to tell you about the children's home, just a little bit more detail. So the Hogar de Niños is home to about 50 kids right now, and they live on this beautiful property where you drive up a line of coconut trees and plátano. So we say there are 3 houses. There's the younger girls, the older girls, and the boys' house. But when it comes time for Sabbath worship, afternoon soccer games, or school, they're all one house together. So during my time there, I was living with the older teenage girls, so you can imagine there was never a dull moment. And the Hogar de Niños is also connected with one of the best high schools in Honduras, and it's Reach Institute. It's funded by Reach International as well. And I say it's the best because there are non-Adventist students who will travel over an hour just to attend this facility because of the academics that they provide. So a typical day in Honduras is kids up at 5:30 a.m., meaning staff is up at 4:30. We have breakfast at 6 a.m. and school will start at 7. So after school, chores, lunch, usually we're all done by like 4 p.m. and we get like a good hour or 2 of soccer before dinner time. And many people have asked me what my role was when I was serving there. And I never know how to answer it because there were so many things. But some basic things that I did was I would teach English to 7th and 8th graders. I would also help babysit the younger girls on certain days, and I would help run the keys when the women's director was having her day off. Some other things I don't typically mention, but I did do occasionally would be to help take the kids to doctor's appointments. I'd also I'd run errands as needed. There were some long nights where the kids were sick and you'd have to stay up with them. And my most favorite role, and the one that I cherish, was just getting to spend genuine time with the kids, hearing their stories and making memories together. One thing I do want to mention real quick is these kids, their ages range from about 4, right now the youngest is 4, the oldest is 19, and once they graduate, they do have the opportunity to go to university, which is a huge privilege for them. They do have a program that is run by a wonderful missionary, and she helps find sponsors for them. They've had several who have graduated from university, and right now they actually have 7 who are studying in Peru. Some are studying nursing, education, psychology, and medicine. So it's a huge blessing for them because some kids who grow up in certain environments, they don't have that ability to dream of something more. You may notice that I call it a children's home and not an orphanage. Sometimes when we talk about the Hogar de Niños, we do refer to it as an orphanage, but most times we refer to it as a children's home. The truth is, the majority of these kids do have families and living parents. For various reasons, they are not able to live with them. And when the Hogar de Niños was originally created, they didn't want to be looked at as an orphanage, a place where children go to be housed until they're adopted, because the truth is the majority of these kids will never be adopted. And some of these kids arrive as young as age 1, and they grow up there. So for them, this is their home. So the Hogar de Niños, when funded, they wanted to be a safe haven. They called it a children's home because they wanted it to be a place where children who perhaps were coming from a broken environment could come and find a new home. Most of the children there have experienced various trials, such as poverty, abuse, miseducation, and each of them has a very unique story, and they've seen things through their little eyes that you would never wish upon anyone. But the thing about it is that when you meet them, you'll never know it. You'll just see the beauty and their laughter. You'll hear their laughter. You'll see their joy. And you'll never know the things that they've experienced unless they feel trust to tell you. And the reason for this is because, yes, they've experienced struggle, but now they feel so safe because they've found a new home. As I was reading, I found the passage in Mark where the woman brought their children to Jesus to be blessed, and the disciples turned them away. And you see, these kids were now beyond the typical age to be blessed, so the disciples thought they were doing Jesus a favor and turning them away, but Jesus brought them back, and he blessed them, because he knew that if you are to give a child a chance, amazing things can happen.
So the first day that we got on the trip, that we arrived at the Hogar de Niños, Nathan, Matthew, and I went to the little kid's house to say hello. And I don't speak Spanish, just, my broken high school Spanish, and we went and sat down with the little boys, and they were all, sitting around the table eating beans and rice and avocados. And we sat down, they smiled at us, we looked at them, back and forth, and I was like, oh, we got to make conversation with these guys. And so I turned to one of them and I said, ¿Te gusta abogados? And he just smiled at me. And Nathan's like, dude, you just asked him if he likes lawyers. And so I was like, oh, man. And then I, sort of changed my strategy. I was like, ¿Te gusta guacamole? And all the little boys turned and they started smiling and got their forks and they started smashing their avocados together. And it was kind of a moment of connection I wasn't expecting. Because when I first got there, I was really nervous. I didn't know if the kids would want to, connect with me, or language barriers and whatnot. But that sort of experience reminded me of something that happens, when I work with kids, is that they'll always surprise me in a positive way. I end up seeing the love of Jesus through them. They always end up surprising me. And it reminds me of in Matthew 19, like Elizabeth was saying, when the children were being brought to Jesus and he was going to bless them, but the disciples said, no, we don't have time for this. Jesus said, children, such is the kingdom of heaven. And sometimes when I'm wanting to work with kids, I'll get nervous about it. I'll think, they don't want to be engaged in whatever activities we're going to do, whether it's Sabbath school or, going on a mission trip like this. But that experience sort of proved it wrong. It's kind of just a funny story. And I kind of was thinking past few weeks, hey, why not go back there? Maybe as a student missionary. So that's in the works. And the application process is going through. And what I will say about it is, if you're on the fence about being a student missionary or not, and you'll maybe ask some of your family members for advice or what they think about it, you're going to get all sorts of different answers. You're going to get, oh, that sounds like a terrible idea. And then you're going to get, oh, man, you have to do that. So the point is, it's a really personal thing between you and God, and you need to pray about it. You need to not worry so much about what other people are telling you about it. But if you are on the fence, then definitely talk to Tila, talk to Dr. Russell about it. But as for me, I hope I can go back someday and ask them for real, do you like avocados? Thank you.
Hello. So like you heard, I went to Honduras over Christmas break. And so asking myself the question why I'm going back is actually pretty difficult, because it kind of goes along with what do you want to be when you grow up? And so in order to tell you, I have to go back to one night where Pastor Russell asked me to give a devotion. And I didn't really have anything in mind. I was like, I don't know what to devotion about. So I was like, you know what, I'll just tell part of my life story. And so we're there, and I before this, I'm starting to make relationships. So I'm me and some of the kids are climbing coconut trees, cutting the coconuts up, giving them to everyone, talking to the girls or the guys, playing soccer, and it was really fun. And then I go to give my story, so I'm in there, and I'm talking, and I'm telling bits of my life story, and it gets a little emotional, I'm not gonna lie, and I just feel like everyone's staring at me, and it was so weird, because usually during church, it's we were kids, when we go to church, we're drawing, playing, so it was usually not everyone's paying attention, but for this time, I just felt like every eye was on me, and it was pretty scary, because I was super vulnerable in front of people I just met. And so, it goes through, and some of the girls, they come up after, they hug me, and we talk, and then one of the guys, Samir, he told me, he was like, oh, you did something that showed them a bit of God's love that I don't know if they've been able to see before. And I was kind of confused. I was like, I just told my story. What's so special about that? And he was like, you come in here and you're this tall, long, curly hair Argentinian guy that that's from a different part of the world, all this, all that, and they think there's nothing in common. And you go and show them that there is something in common, and they realize it's the same idea that Jesus walked the same life that we did. And so it's as I was thinking about that, I didn't know what to make sense of it. until like that night I was thinking, and like throughout the week, some of these girls would come up to me and like share their stories. And it was really heartbreaking to hear like some of the things like Elizabeth mentioned that like you wouldn't wish upon your worst enemy, and you hear this and it breaks your heart because these people mean so much to you already. And so I'm starting to think like, and three of the girls that I was talking to, one of them had mentioned like, oh, Andrews, or so asked me about Andrews. And I was like, oh, what about you? Like, how do you feel about Andrews? You know, they've come for 20 years. And she tells me like, Andrews is a dream that she can't even dream because it's so like untangible. In the sense of like, most of us when we have dreams, like if you want to be a missionary, a doctor, a counselor, whatever you want to be, like you know one day you'll be that thing. But for her, it was like, there's no point in dreaming it because I know it's never going to come true. And so when I thought of that, I was like, dang, like I'm literally living this girl's wildest dream, and sometimes I can't even look up and say thank you. And so as we're going through this and I'm wondering, I'm like, why does she think that this is something that she doesn't deserve to dream? And you look at some of the things they'd say to each other, and then like, I think Elizabeth or someone else told me that it's like like 90% of the girls like have been victims or survivors of sexual abuse. And so, and all of them have messed up situations. And they really think, whether they say it or not, you can tell that they think that that's what defines them. And so when I'm asking like, why go back? It's like my purpose that I feel like for me to go back is to really tell them that like, that's not what defines you. And if you're going to look at anything that defines you, like look at the cross. Like what Jesus did is what can define us. And so that's what I want to encourage people and myself is like what they need, as much as they need someone to play soccer with them, to read to them, to love them, is to see someone that's also not had it easy, or people that have gone through abuse or abandonment, anything like that, and to show them like, I'm still standing, I'm still here going to college, I'm still chasing and achieving my dreams. And if they see that, then it encourages them to start dreaming and to actually chase those dreams. And there's this like quote I'm just going to sum up real quick when it asks like why go back, and it's like it's like our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. And when you ask yourself, who are you to be beautiful, gorgeous, talented, whatever it is, like the question is, who are you not to be? That you're a child of God, that you serving small does not serve this world. And so you need to realize the gift that God has given you, in the sense, if you have like these vulnerabilities, like I said, is kind of a superpower, because if I can be vulnerable and show people that like you too can keep going, you too can accomplish whatever you want, that can like make someone else do the same thing. So yeah, I want to go back because I really miss them, and they have a special place in my heart. And from what they've told me, I do too. So I hope to see them soon.
The greatest value in missions is transformed lives, the lives of those we serve and the lives of those who go. Missions is not just an adventure. Serving in missions requires faithfulness, humility, and surrender to God's will instead of our own desire. Research from our very own Dr. Russell shows that mission service is among one of the top 3 most formative experiences for college students, so people our age. So how many of you guys are considering a student mission year? Maybe about 5 of us? So maybe God can speak to you in the next few paragraphs. So Jesus' last words to his disciples can be found in Matthew chapter 28, verse 19. I'll do the hard work and summarize that for us. Basically, he said, go. He doesn't say go only if you speak the language. He doesn't say go only if you know someone else going, or go only if you feel comfortable. He doesn't say, to all of us, he said, go to Andrews. And to some of us, he's saying, go and serve. This next school year, God has called me to do a student mission year, and I plan on doing it in Honduras. And if God can call someone like me to service, he can call any one of you guys. So in the last 2-week period that I went to Honduras earlier this year, I got to experience God's hand very closely in my life. He used a car accident, totaling my car to provide money to go, and he used my broken Spanish and heart of stone to connect with the people in Honduras. When you take a leap of faith, God is nearer than ever. The website to look at the possible callings is called He Said Go. I hope each one of you can prayerfully consider whether God is calling you to service this next year. Even before you begin your look, God already has a plan for you. There are people waiting for your personal touch. God wants you to be going. Now I say, go to the website. God promises us in Jeremiah 29, verse 11, you guys can say it with me. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And so I pray for each one of you guys that this next year we can consider maybe going on a short-term mission trip like this one that we have in December. And also there's one coming up for the spring break, going to Lebanon. And also you can go during the summer, like Nick mentioned, he might be going this summer, or even a whole school year. So God has a plan for you, and there are people waiting for your personal touch. Just think of the story that Joanna told about Ever. There are little kids, there are families of people, there are schools that need your work.